we are restoring men. So we're going to look at this tremendous victory of you, the men, and look at it through the eyes of men and how you voted, because you won this election. Now, of course, you had help from the women and everyone else, but you were attacked. They said you wouldn't vote. I kept saying they're going to vote. You men are going to vote. They're going to come through and they're going to save the nation. And guess what? You saved the nation. So hats off to you men at the front of this, and hats off to the women that voted for Trump, and hats off to all Americans. But the tremendous impact of men is what we're going to look at, because we are restoring men. Now, different voting blocks came together: Catholics, blue collar men. We've talked about what needed to be the focus of the Republican Party for a long time. I've said this over and over and over. We got to go for working class, blue collar men. But of course, the establishment, and before this election and before Donald Trump, was always focused on the wrong things, I believe. And that's because it's kind of the uniparty, right? The establishment, they really act and seem to not care about you men, not seem to care about the borders, not seem to care about the regular working class of people, the union workers, and the people, the American people. They just don't seem to care about you. They seem to take care of themselves, right? That's what it seems like, and that's what their actions show. But we're going to take a look at demographics today, and we want all people to come and vote for freedom in the Constitution and the Republican Party. Constitutionalist conservatives, right? We certainly don't want communism, but you men came through, and you acted. They said you wouldn't. I said they're going to vote. They're going to vote. They're going to vote, and you did. So let's look at this piece. The piece is coming of MAGA dominance. Of course, the establishment didn't want the Tea Party, and they don't want MAGA dominance. There's a battle going on for the soul of this party, and Donald Trump and you won for now. But the battle will keep raging on. It's not over. You see the establishment right now pushing back against Trump already. We'll go into that in another video. This could be hours, this video, but maybe we can keep it to 30, 40 minutes. I don't know. Eric Lindrum, American Greatness, November 15, comes up with some great stats and exit polls that I really want to take the time to go through. I think it's important for you men to hear and hear your contribution and your impact on not only America, because as we say, as the men go, so goes America, and so goes the world, right? So you men had a significant contribution to this election. And I want to give you the credit. And Donald Trump, of course, gets the credit. And Scott Presler and Cliff Maloney and all the people that worked, and all the women that worked for Cliff Maloney and Scott Presler and all the women that worked around the nation. We want to give credit to everybody. But this is Restoring Men, and we're going to focus on you men. MAGA dominance. Prior to the entrance of Donald Trump onto the political stage, the GOP's best hope for victory was to win virtually all the states that were once considered, quote, swing states just 2 decades ago. This best represented the 2004 map when George Bush narrowly defeated John Kerry. By the way, he was in a war, had been in a war, and usually wartime presidents get added boost. All right? But Trump has created a movement, the MAGA movement, and it stands for something: real policies, border security, a nation, sovereignty, American sovereignty. We're not going to go through that. Let's keep going with the piece, because this could go on all day. They seem to rather want to lose some of the establishment, right? Sometimes, as long as they hold power, and that's not for you. But let's go on to the piece. Bush managed to win then swing states of Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado. Colorado had the blueprint. There's a book on it. Iowa, Ohio, Virginia, and Florida. We got to keep going, because we could literally stay on this for hours. This is a fantastic piece, and I think if you'll stick with it, you men will feel fantastic today. The only swing state Bush lost that year was what? New Hampshire, okay? Even though he had won it 4 years prior against whom? Gore. Kerry won the 3 Rust Belt states that have become so much more important in recent years. After winning 8 of the 9 swing states, Bush wound up with a mere 286. Now remember, Bush is establishment. Donald Trump is not establishment. Donald Trump's for you. To Kerry's 251. Bush came up with Homeland Security, Patriot Act, all this junk, right? Not for freedom. By contrast, even though President Trump lost 5 of the 9 swing states from the 2004 map, we didn't have those on swing states this time, so they weren't. But from the 2004 map, his victories in the 3 Rust Belt states were enough to net him a total of, get this, you ready? Huge. And hats off to Donald Trump, the great American hero, and you men. 306 electoral votes, substantially higher than Bush's best performance. Establishment Bush, father establishment, grandfather establishment, Prescott Bush. Now, remember, Josh Shapiro was governor of Pennsylvania, and Gretchen Whitmer was governor of Michigan, very active, and the Secretary of State there, and we won because of you men. We won. Blue collar, Catholic, you men. A lot of demographics to get through. I want to get through the actual numbers. I think if you stick with it, he then beat his own record with his historic comeback victory 8 years later with the 312 electoral votes, picking up one more of Bush's swing state by trading out the smaller states of New Mexico, Colorado, and New Hampshire for the more heavily populated Rust Belt. We talked about it. We knew he could win it. I said it all along. I said it in 16. He did it again. And I believe in 20. Made Republican victories at the national level much easier than they were. But by the way, maybe we'll do another video on the greatest comeback of the political history of Donald Trump and how great he is and a hero. He flipped that Rust Belt. But he also won the House and the Senate. He was so strong, he carried other people into office. They're still counting votes, by the way, in Pennsylvania and Arizona. What's going on there? California, too. Come on. Get it done. But also, we know what's going on. The credible achievement of solidifying several swing states as newly minted Republican strongholds, whereas Ohio, Iowa, and Florida were long seen. Remember, swing states, Florida, Iowa, Ohio would be in play. Dating back as far as 1960, he goes on to say in this piece, President Trump has turned them into ruby red. I like that term, ruby red states. He won Ohio by 11 points, Iowa by 11 points, and Florida by 13 points. Get that, 13 points, Trump victory in Florida. He dominated it. By the way, he ran against DeSantis and the governor of Florida and dominated him. So this is a Trump win. Just to be clear, it is a Trump win. Now, I never forget arguing with Republicans from 2015 up until all the way through this election that he was not going to lose, that we were not going to lose the House, that we're not going to lose the Senate. He won all three. This guy dominated, so what can we learn from it? What can we take away and how can we do better next time? He loves America, you know we love him. Some of the politicians have called Hispanic Latino voters misogynistic for not voting for Kamala Harris. How ridiculous is that? You men knew what you were voting for. Alpha male, masculinity, and all that, along with the policies of a secure border, because a secure border makes you safer and gives you more opportunity. It's protecting your opportunity and your family, and you knew that, and you voted fantastically. Thank you. Hats off to you men. Again, this is a piece for you men, because I said you weren't going to vote, and you voted. And I said you were going to vote. I said they're going to vote. They're going to come through, and you did. So let's keep going. Moreover, President Trump exceeded the 270 threshold by a sizable amount due to his dominance in all 7 swing states, all 7. That's an amazing accomplishment by Donald J. Trump, American hero. Fight, fight, fight. Never forget it. I'll never forget it. I know where it was, July 13th. You probably do too. This is exciting. This is an exciting piece for the GOP and the MAGA movement. He did not need all those states to win. Simply flipping Georgia and Pennsylvania, for example, would have put him at exactly what, 270. Flipping Georgia, Arizona, and any one of the other Rust Belt states would have put him over the top. Under his leadership, the GOP is now the party with more paths to 270. Thank you, Donald Trump. They attacked him and attacked him. Mitch McConnell attacked him. Paul Ryan. All that establishment. Mike Pence. Yeah, you had the whole... This man, this isn't supposed to be the comeback and about Donald Trump. It's supposed to be about you men. But we just want to say this. I think Kamala Harris spent about $1 billion. She had performers, she had the media, she had the established media. It shows you, and it's a testament to Donald Trump. The establishment opposed him. The Republican establishment opposed MAGA and you. The Republican establishment is not for you men. It's not for the Rust Belt. It hasn't been for the working class. But Donald Trump is changing that, and the MAGA movement is changing that. I've got a bunch of hats. Should have a hat on today. It was never about the swing states of 2004. The answer has always been the Rust Belt and turning the blue wall into what? The big red wall with the red cap, right? The return of the old coalition. However, understanding this victory can only come when we take away the correct conclusions. So he's talking about conclusions and demographics. Now, to be clear about these demographics, we want everybody to come to the freedom side. All ages, all colors. We're for everybody to have freedom. We're just talking about demographics. Back to his piece. Here are the exit polls, and I love exit polls. Do you love exit polls? Because I think they're fantastic this time for us. So what can we look forward to? What can we move toward? What should we be putting our time, money, and energy to is my point here. And I've been saying this for years and years. And now we have the evidence with exit polls of what I've been saying. Brian Kaiser, you remember all our talks. Scotty, you remember all our talks for years and years. All right, that made it possible. And not let logic be swept up in the jubilee that is rightfully still. Okay. Major exit polls have come in by now, and they paint the picture. The bulk of President Trump's coalition was what? And what has it always been, he says? White voters. Now, we want all voters again, and everybody's fantastic. President Trump has maintained a steady and decisive majority in this crucial bloc, all 3 elections. Against Hillary Clinton in 2016, I think these numbers are important if you'll stick with it. He won 57% of the white vote to 37, 57 to 37. Trump increased his share slightly to 58%, while Joe Biden's rose to 41. Yeah. This time around, Trump actually went, that election's weird. Trump actually went back to his 2016 percentage of 57%, while Harris remained stagnant, matching Biden's 41%. These are important. Here's the key difference. White voters, here's where we get into it, accounted for 70% of the vote in 2016. In 2020, they fell to 67%. Before rising back to what? In 2024, Matt? 71%. This proves that as long as Republicans can maintain a high 50s range, then white voters remain roughly 70% of the electorate. See that? And it's the key to instantly giving the GOP an edge in any future presidential map. This is key. This is important. Broken down further, the backbone has always been the white working class. Now, I've always said we need to go for the working class. We're the party of the working class. I'm conservative, but constitutionalist, but Republicans are the party that should be the party of the working class. They haven't been, because we have that Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan, and those guys and those cats, that establishment class of elites that wants to send all their money to Ukraine and all this other stuff and not have a secure border because they want open borders, because it's the uniparty. All right, white class. Specifically, what kind of white voters, though? Specifically, white voters with no college education. Now, we talk about this a lot. And when you go to college, a lot of people are indoctrinated with that Marxist indoctrination. Hollywood does it as well. So it's an onslaught if you're hitting college. And I believe that's why when you're out in the working world and you're in the real world and you don't go to college, it prevents you from taking all that extra Marxist indoctrination and being around your peers, which also influence you. But let's go on. In 2016, Trump won 67% of the white non-college vote to Hillary's 28%. So Trump won 67% of the non-college vote to Hillary's 28%. He once again got 67% in 2022, Biden's 32%, and fell back to 66%, while Kamala retained Biden's percentage of 32%. So here's where the turnout proves important, gentlemen. In 2016, non-college white voters accounted for 34% of the vote, compared to 37% for the white college-educated voters. And by the way, we need more people going to trade schools, not Marxist indoctrination centers, piling up debt. And that's another whole issue. In 2020, non-college whites made up 35% of the electorate compared to college whites, 32%. But in 2024, I hope these numbers are resonating. Non-college whites jump. I find it fascinating. I hope you do too. Jumped to 39%. And I'm trying to do it fast because we have a lot of material to go through, but I should probably slow down. But in 2024, non-college jumps, and this is the key, non-college whites jumped to 39%, Brian, while college whites remained at 39 to 33. See the difference there? Again, we're the party of the working class, not the Democrats. If we're the MAGA movement, if we can get these establishment guys gone. Because the Republican Party has a lot of bad guys in it too that don't work for you. They seem to work for themselves, and they seem not to care about you. Let's give it up. Let's be real today. The Uniparty is not with you guys, not with you men, not with you Americans, not with you American women either. Not good for the families. And men and women can make each other better and enrich each other. Several important blocks that President Trump did well with in 2016, then lost to Biden in 20, before winning them back in this time include union voters and Catholics. Union voters and Catholics. In 2016, Trump lost union households by just 9% to Hillary, with 42 to her 51. In 20, Biden decisively won with 56 to Trump's 41, a 15-point difference. But some people bought that he was a moderate. They bought Scranton Joe. Remember all that? They brought it. He was from that area and for the working. I'm a working class guy. I'm Joe Biden. Yeah, I'm a working class man. Come on, man. I'm a working class guy, right? Then in 2024, Trump returned to a single-digit margin of 8 points with 45 to Kamala's 53. Big difference. Trump won Catholic voters outright in 2016. And remember, I believe one article I saw said Trump's negative coverage all these years have been 92%. During this election, Trump's coverage from the media was 92% negative, while Kamala Harris's was 89% positive, according to one study I read. I don't have that here. because I didn't plan to bring it up, before Biden narrowly won them back with 52% to Trump's 47%. This year, Trump dominated among this bloc with a staggering, get this, you ready? 18-point lead, 58 to Kamala's 40. There you go. Think about that. He won the Catholic voters that bigly. So thank you, Catholic voters, for voting for freedom and Donald Trump. Hats off to you, Catholics. Most of these can be attributed primarily to Joe Biden's appeal to these voters compared to the rest of his party. Yeah, we talked about that. These two demographics should not be taken for granted. Okay, we can't take anything for granted. He's saying if the Democratic Party does some soul searching and changes. The new coalition, it's undeniable that President Trump also successfully expanded upon the coalition. We've been saying to do this for a long time. Remember, Brian? Upon this, bringing new voters into the fold with very precise messaging. Trump's not afraid to say what he means. He wasn't afraid to talk about immigration and the border, which protects your jobs. It just does. And also protects America, principles, American principles, and America. So he's fantastic a lot of times at messaging. And he had a true Big Ten approach. He says, this is the article, did not sacrifice into the core tenets. That's a key, right? He didn't sacrifice the core tenets of America first. Secure that border. Know who comes in. Manufacturing back in the USA. We'll punish you. Tariffs, et cetera, et cetera. Free, fair trade, not just free trade, free, fair trade. Talked about this a long time too. A lot of books on it. So we argue with Republicans about that as well. He leaned into his core tenets. He didn't run away from it. And he also was authentic. He didn't change who he was, but that's for another day. Most astonishingly, President Trump won the highest number. Get this, ready? He won the highest number of what vote? Of the Hispanic voters of any Republican candidate in American history. For the people that argued with me for years and years about this, I said he could get it, and he did it. I said we could pull off everything, and he did. A lot of Republicans argued with me over these last years, from 16 to now. From 16 to now, all the way up into the fall, we're going to lose. And I said he could get that demographic. I said that was one of our demographics. Just 6 points less than Kamala's 52. So he got 46, just 6 points less than Kamala's 52. See how he narrowed that? This is a massive shift from his 36-point deficit in 16 and 32% deficit in 2020. Remember, whole media is against him. And $1 billion was spent against him, and the Republican establishment was against him, right? McConnell wouldn't fund Kari Lake, just with other candidates, but I don't want to go in that. We can do another video on McConnell and who he wouldn't and who would fund in 22 and 24. All right. A major part of this, of course, is his direct and unapologetic stance on immigration. He is who he is. He has a red tie on North Carolina. He has a red tie. That's one of it, but it's his unapologetic stance on immigration. Pointed out that few groups in America are more negatively, who's impacted by that? We said this, by illegal immigration than the native-born Hispanic American population. He says it. He means it. You know what he says? Ron Paul did too. He's not just a politician in a suit saying what people want to hear. He knew it was important and he stuck to it. Give the credit to Donald J. Trump and you. But just as profound, and some even are simpler than the immigration message, was his direct appeal to half of the population. Who's that? Who we focused on today? His direct appeal to you, the men of this country, the men who can save this country, and it's up to us. But a lot of men know you need a secure border. And that goes into men and women's psychology. I don't think we'll go into that. Let's go on. If we come back, get time, we'll talk about that difference and why men can hold fast to that. A lot of times, women want to be accepted in social circles, and so they vote against themselves to allow an open border. But men know we have to have a secure border. Anyway, let's go on. In 2016, he won the male vote by 11%, while Hillary Clinton won the female vote, get this, by a larger margin of 13%. In 2020, Biden managed to bring the Democratic deficit down to 8 points, while also increasing his lead with women to 15 points. See, Cameron Cross says, average Joe. In 2024, however, President Trump earned a commanding lead. And get this, here's to you men. Here's where we give you cheers. President Trump earned a commanding lead of 13 points among men. 3 cheers again. You men did it. You came out, you voted, you won. Thank you. While bringing the Democrats' margin with women down to single digits for the first time, as Kamala won that block by just 8 points. So Kamala still won the women. This is an example of where margins mattered more, and I talked about that before the election. As women have consistently, there was social media influencers, people attacking you men. And I said, hey, there's more women voting for Kamala than men. We're going to have a big gap with men. Trust me. And it was correct. I said, the overwhelming majority of men is going to go for Donald Trump. And they did, and you did. Hats off to you. Been a larger share of the electorate than men. In 2016, they accounted for 53 of the vote to the 47% men. So that's true. And all of us men should be voting, by the way. With the gap leaking slightly in 2020 to 52% women and 48 men. In 2024, the numbers returned to exactly the 2016 percentages. The strategy of focusing heavily on the male vote, that's a strategy, while seeking to simply decrease the Democratic lead. Now remember, and this is big that Trump had the courage to do this. I argued with people about this for years. Don't focus on the soccer moms. Forget them. Go for the blue collars, the men, the Catholic, and this, right? I specifically said the blue collar and the men. Got to go for them. You're not going to get the college-educated, indoctrinated soccer mom. You're not going to get most of those. Democratic lead with women rather than win them outright has been accurately. You've got to pick where you put your time, energy, and money. You're going to get some of them. You can get some of them. Yeah, right, you can get some. But we really are the party of the working class now. Democratic lead with women rather than win them outright has been accurately referred to by Time magazine as, quote, maxing out the men and holding the women. It's not enough to simply hope that men will be turned off to the Democratic Party. They must be convinced to vote for what? The Republican nominee. And see, Donald Trump's not that traditional, boring Republican candidate like John McCain and Mitt Romney, right? He's dynamic and he resonates. And he has policy, right? He's not the uniparty. More importantly, he's not the establishment Republican who's for open borders and losing all manufacturing and, you know, funding everything around the world for wars and going to wars. But that's another time. Divine providence. So we talked about this. I knew exactly where we were. You probably remember where you were, July 13th. I really believed that night God's hand was on Donald Trump and divine providence. Divine providence, he says also, and he agrees with us, played a key role in this as Trump's miraculous survival of the assassination instantly boosted his image as what? The epitome of masculinity. How many men can get shot and stand up with presence of mind in that memorable day, and I'll never forget it, and say, fight, fight, fight. And what was he doing? He was sending us a message that no matter what happened to him, we've got to go on and protect the Constitution and protect America and restore America and save it. That it's up to us, you, the men, for us to save it, no matter what happens to him. The man is resilient. The man has courage, and I respected it so much. Respected him before that. But he got up that day after being shot and said, fight, fight, fight. And I believe it motivated Elon Musk, and Elon Musk talks about it. I believe that made Elon Musk all in because he wanted a man of courage. I believe it resonated with you men, that we like masculinity. No matter the world attacks it and talks about toxic masculinity, we know that masculinity is important to this nation. And as the men go and as masculinity goes, so goes the nation. Who's going to protect it? You men. So when Donald Trump showed us courage, that's leadership. When he stood up, worried about you and worried about the country, not himself living that day. When he stood up and fight, 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 that could have been the man's last words. He didn't know who else was out there. But he wanted to send a message to keep fighting because he loves you and he loves this country. So anyway, he says he's a man's man, an American hero. He was. I call it that day. That is a great American hero. That day in the iconic, remember the iconic image of that photo? The photo is incredible. By the way, the Kennedy and Trump photo, we should do a video on the iconic moments of Trump because they're incredible. Made it cool to vote for Donald Trump? Well, I thought it was cool always. But anyway, and to support him publicly. No one understood this better than men. I do remember in 15 or 16 at a Christmas party, somebody in LA saying, I know you're for Trump big lead and you don't know who matters, but I don't want to be known for it. And it was at a private party too, at a private club. This was so true that we saw, you know, anyway, this was true. We saw that courage. And it's an amazing historical moment. And because of you, November 5th was an amazing historical moment. You are part of history, but let's go on. If the news was not, you know, and if the news was not the arm of the Democratic Party, this election, which a lot of people thought was over July 13th, would have been even more huge, right? She had the whole media. Like I said, 92% negative coverage of Trump, 89% positive of Kamala Harris. That's points. That's votes. But but he goes on to say this, but President Trump didn't just let the image speak for itself. He did what he does best and continued to pitch his deal in the only way he could. It was never a matter of his messaging skills, but rather where he made his pitch. Remember wherever he went, by the way, he's the hardest working guy I've ever seen in politics. 78 years old and has more energy than anyone, right? His energy is incredible, and it shows you men what you can accomplish at 78 years old. Never give in, never give up. Stay resilient, because Donald Trump teaches you that at 78, you can accomplish everything. By the way, Donald Trump's authentic, and when he does something, he is a clever marketer, but there are other iconic moments, and we should probably do this in another video, but the garbage, brilliant marketing. And see, he wasn't pretending to be a garbage guy like some politicians do, or pretending to work at McDonald's. Everybody knows he didn't work there, but it was brilliant marketing because he was playing on what the opposition said they had done, or what the opposition called you, garbage, Nazis, right?
The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
You were called names. Like I said, the network started calling Hispanics misogynistic for not voting for Kamala Harris, denigrating you. $1 billion spent against him, and he overcame it. This was a major win for Donald Trump, and the Republican establishment fought him. He talks about the podcast, and that was ingenious, right? He calls it ingenious. Podcast Blitz. And I think Barron was behind that as well. Strategy comes into play. His numerous appearances on podcasts, live streams, Aiden Ross, Theo Vaughn, Logan Paul, and of course the great Joe Rogan, which Kamala Harris didn't want to do. Why? It'd be hard for her to talk 3 hours, right? I don't think she could do it. I never thought she'd go on. And she didn't. But Donald Trump did for 3 hours because he can go. And then after that day, by the way, he went up and flew to a rally and gave like a 3-hour rally, I believe. Rogan proved not only to be the most effective campaign strategy in modern history when it comes to messaging that circumvents the mainstream media. We know the mainstream media is a part of the Democratic Party and machine. So who was he reaching? Who was he marketing? To you men. And it shows how important you men are to the Republic. You men have a role to play, and you played your role, by the way, well played. It was a direct and extremely successful plan to reach millions of men, especially young men who might not have heard what he had to say. Some have fittingly referred to this as the new political coalition called the Bro Wall. Think of how much power you have, you men. The Bro Wall. His dominance with men, and this is important, is the one consistent factor across all of the demographic lines in the country. Let me say that again. His dominance with men, you men, is the one, and we are restoring men, is the one consistent factor across all other demographic lines in the country, all other demographic lines in the country. And we don't want to leave anyone out, but you men had a major impact and made the difference in this election. So pat yourselves on the back, raise your heads high. They denigrated you, they attacked you, they said men aren't voting, you did. And I said that all along, men are going to vote. They're going to vote, trust me, they're going to vote, and you did. And you got Trump elected. And of course the women helped, and all their groups helped too. Scott Pressler, Cliff Maloney, all these people, all the teams of them. But I'm just saying, today's the focus on men, and you guys had an impact. So let's go on the stats. He won married men by 22 points, unmarried men by 2 points, white men by 23 points. That's huge. White men by 23 points. White suburban men by 27 points. Non-college men, the men that did not go to Marxist indoctrination centers, by 40 points. Had to find the stat. White men by 40 points. College-educated white men by 3 points. So the ones that didn't go to Marxist indoctrinated college, he won by 40 points. White men by 3 points that went to college. We need to fix that. And he won with men of every single age. So men of all ages, and I think I have this in the video. No, I just posted. But I said men were going to come together of every age, and you did. You won every age. So there you go. He won with the youngest, he even won the youngest of men between the ages of 18 and 29 by a 2-point margin, with his leads only getting bigger as the ages get higher. So as he gets higher, he gets more and more men. Even across the racial lines, the overwhelming support for President Trump cannot be ignored. He outright won the Hispanic men, thank you, by how much? 12 points. 55% to Kamala's 43%. And I said he could do this. I said it all along for years and years. Republicans said, you can't talk about the wall. You can't talk about immigration, Chuck. We'll lose the Hispanic vote. I said, no, we can win it. And we did by talking about it. Argued and argued and argued with Republicans about this that wanted to get off that stance. And the single most loyal, and finally this year, a lot of people knew how bad the border was, but 16 to 23. And the single most loyal Democratic demographic in the country, black voters, Trump managed to score a respectable 21% of black men to Kamala's 77%. Numbers do not lie. President Trump's coalition, the winning coalition for the Republican Party, is predominantly, and this is his statement here on demographics, is predominantly white and male, with the welcome addition of Hispanics, so white and male and Hispanic, and a critical role to be played by what else? Catholics and union members. So there's your party, who are especially important in what areas? The Rust Belt, right? Again, we said a long time, college indoctrinated women are a problem for us. And that seems to be what the establishment kept going after. President Trump's protection approach to trade and promise of a return to made in the USA. USA, you remember the chants? USA, USA, USA. Were key to swinging back the union vote, while his stellar record on fighting abortion helped win back whom? The Catholics. He got attacked too. I remember the Republicans say we're going to lose everything because he appointed the judges who overturned Roe v. Wade, and we can't overturn that. And I said, we have to overturn that. That's unconstitutional. Roe v. Wade must be overturned. And it was. The tectonic shift in Hispanics was crucial to Texas swinging so heavily back to the right after Biden lost by just 5 points in 20. With President Trump, and Trump did better, much far better than Cruz, with President Trump this time scoring a staggering 14-point margin over Kamala. He did far better than Ted Cruz. And it can also explain why Arizona went to Trump by the largest margin of any of the 7 swing states this cycle, as well as why the neighboring state of Nevada, cheers, flipped red for the first time in 20 years. President Trump's America First approach to immigration, which establishment Republicans didn't want, they'd like an open border, won. So the Republican establishment lost. Trump won, and you won. Republican establishment lost. But they're going to keep fighting. We have to watch them. We're going to have to watch them the whole way through. They're still fighting. They're already fighting them on the appointments because they know those appointments will clean up the corruption, take away their goodies, right? Approach to immigration played a key part in persuading a sizable number of generational Hispanics to side with their fellow Americans in opposing the invasion caused by hordes of illegals. He goes on to say, just as Catholics and union votes were critical of the Rust Belt, the new Hispanic wing of the America First will be the key to the Southwest, he says. This is him. The male vote was solidified not through any one particular pillar stance, but by the, as Kamala would say, by the power of vibes. President Trump is a masculine figure. I said this in 2015. He's an alpha male. He's a masculine guy. Hispanics will like that, I thought. I liked it myself. So, you know, I think men are going to like that. He will be up to the future standard bearers to become the icons of masculinity just as he did. Well, he's very masculine. We'll see. Can't be one of those establishment guys. We'll go into that theory another day. But establishment guys just, you know. And with his fair share of podcast appearances, all right, let's go on. However, there is one word of warning that must be made to any Republican strategist or pundits who hope to earn the swooning approval of baby boomers who watch Fox News. The GOP must abandon any and all hope of ever winning a negligible percentage. Well, this is him. This is not me. I want to make it clear. This is his piece. The GOP, he says, must abandon any and all hope of ever winning a negligible percentage of the black vote. Contrary to what Candace Owens once promised, and I'm reading this from here, Brexit is never going to happen. It's clear that black voters are not going to wake up. Well, we'll see. Some came over, so we've gained points in that and have the but I understand the focus has to be, and I agree, on the working class and those segments. President Trump's commendable performance among black men was unfortunately offset by Kamala outperforming with black women, winning 90% of the demographic to Trump's 7%. Well, you know what Scotty and I would say, and many times we've talked about in the groups, LBJ. We've talked about this. And LBJ made a derogatory comment, and he said, I'll have them voting for me forever. And here's the proof of LBJ's entitlement system that he put in place that ruined black families that no one wants to talk about. Bad policy. It hurt the black family. If you love Americans, you don't want that for them. You want families to be able to be together, but let's don't stop here. As it turns out, black women slightly outnumbered black men overall, with the women making up 7% of the overturn all compared to men's 5%. So we talked about that. We could stop here forever, but I don't want to. I want to keep going. So that's about changing the incentives, right? If you want that vote, you're going to have to change the system and the incentives, probably. And they were better off before those entitlements in that system. President Trump's overall performance with black voters increased by a mere 1 point from 12 and 20 to 13% in 24. But even this increase between 2016 and 20 from 8 to 12, well, that's still 5 points, from the total. So that's far better. But I get what he's saying. Put in the time, energy, and money. You got to pick where you put it. The fact that President Trump still won a resounding victory, even with a negligible percentage of the black vote, proves that this demographic is not necessary to the future. Let's get it anyway. I understand what he's saying. It's where you're going to put your energy, time, and money. But everybody's welcome. And we want everybody on the freedom side, all ages and all colors. He's just talking about who to focus on, where to put the money, time, and energy. So let's be clear here. Because that's 5 points is 5 points. Of that segment, and it's a smaller population. So 5 points of that population is not as large as the others. So I get what he's saying. It's just math, right? It's just the math. The huge population here, small one here, and you've got to, how much energy and money and time is that worth? That's all he's saying. Those are great Americans. Once more, the answer going forward is a coalition consisting of white voters, male voters, Catholic voters, working class. We have said this over and over. I don't think the establishment wanted it because it threatened their power. This is the MAGA movement, not the establishment movement. The establishment movement wants a different demographic to retain power. I don't even think they care if they lose. I think they just want to go to parties and make money and enrich themselves. I think some of them, that's all they want. At least they have by their actions. They've kept the border open. They fought Trump on it. They fought him on all these other things. So you have to say by their actions, they've proven themselves. All other demographics are a bonus, that's true, but these are the 5 key blocks. So he's saying what the priority is, and not that we shouldn't go after anybody. We want everybody for freedom to come over, or the new majority. Some may rightly say that this coalition is lightning in a bottle because only could be achieved by Donald Trump. Well, look, Donald Trump did it, and he helped. But if we stick to these policies and we pick authentic candidates who are authentic and really believe it, right, genuinely believe it, we can win again. If we pick the right candidates who are authentic and genuinely believe it, because authenticity, I believe, works. Example, Ron Paul. Because Trump is a dynamic and unusual figure. It's only going to be one Trump. But better stick to the policies, because you're not going to be Trump, probably. I mean, look at his massive crowds and look at the number of hours he worked. I think he didn't sleep the last 2 days of the campaign, I read somewhere. And look at the schedule. He would go to 4 rallies in a day. The man outworks everybody. 78 years old and outworks everybody on the trail. He outworked Kamala. And the establishment fought his policies. We have a battle coming with the establishment because they don't like these policies. They don't like America First. They don't like a secure border. They like an open border. All right, he talks about excellent news here. What's going to come up? Where is the Electoral College going to change in the future? And he goes through these numbers. And I think we can put this in. There's going to be another census coming up soon. The current projections for the 2030 census, based on internal migration between states, should have all the Democrats fearing. And he says, because Democratic states are projected to lose 13 electoral votes. Now, we already won. He's saying we're going to pick up another 13 votes. Most notably, the Democratic mega stronghold of California is on track to lose 4, while New York will lose 3, Illinois will lose 2. The additional blue states of Minnesota, Oregon, Rhode Island will lose 1, with the swing state of Pennsylvania also losing 1. By contrast, the Republican paradises of Texas and Florida are on track to pick up 4 and 3 votes, respectively, while Republican states Utah, Idaho, and Tennessee will all gain 1. And the swing states of Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina will also pick up a vote. So look at that. That's changing our direction. And he talks about this. We still need to keep working in Texas hard because Soros has put a ton of money in there. So we need to keep working that. Ted Cruz was really close with Beto. If the electoral math was factored in the 2024, then Trump and Vance would have won 324 electoral votes, he says, based on that. This means that even if they lost all 3 Rust Belts, they still would have emerged victorious. Amazing, right? That's amazing, with 281 electoral votes. But this is even before the impact of what? What's coming? The mass deportations, right? Holman. Border czar Tom Holman, if he's successful in removing tens of millions of foreign invaders who occupy Democratic states like New York and California. Think of what's that going to do, gentlemen? This could lead the future president, he says, with as many as 350 electoral votes. So let's wrap it up. There are a lot of battles coming ahead in the years. We're going to have to keep going. But let's also say, here's to you men. They said you wouldn't vote. They said you weren't voting. I said they're going to vote. They're going to vote. And you did. You had an enormous impact for this country. I said it's up to men to save this country. And you did. And now we've got to keep fighting lawfully and peacefully for this country, because it's going to be a battle. The establishment wants their way. The MAGA movement wants freedom and opportunity. And you voted for opportunity, which means you believed in yourselves. You voted for free, fair markets. So here's to you men. On November 5th, you won, the country won, and Donald Trump won. Thank you.